Hello, oops. Oh, I've frozen. Hi. Hello. Hello, everybody. Sorry about that. I think I froze when we went live. Hello to everybody, whether it's the morning, lunchtime, the afternoon, or the evening. You're all very welcome. Today, Bill and I are going to carry on the conversation that we had last week about keeping it real, authenticity, and launching a startup. And I just wanted to say before we start, if you want to make a comment, then please do so or you've got a question, put it in the comments, or you can use the link that we provided to jump into the studio and ask Bill and I in person. Where we're going to start is that we had a question that I missed at the end of last week because it was all a bit hectic. And I'm going to show the question on the screen that says that authenticity is important at all stages of business, and that this correspondent had an offer this morning or last week to be featured in a magazine as a top innovation leader, but it was for a big price. And the question is that authentic, with a heavy dose of irony? So what do you think about that, Bill?
Well, let's boil this down to what it is. It's an offer for a commercial. And commercials can be authentic too. They can be transparent and, hey, here's how we got here today. Here's what we'd like to tell you about. We'd like give you the opportunity to try our product. So I think you could take them up on this offer because it may be a great opportunity. But then you're transparent as if you're in the feature, say, we paid for the opportunity to be here because we saw it as a great opportunity to be associated with your magazine, and our message is the same as your magazine's message when it comes to this. And I think you can still be authentic. Pay to play is the fact in this world. If you want really high quality exposure, you may have to pay for it, and that's okay because that's how the world works. So I would say just be honest about it.
Yeah, I'd add that it's always a good idea to do some research into the magazine.
Yes.
So, what's its readership? How many people are you going to reach? Because clearly if the magazine hasn't got many readers, then it's not going to be worthwhile. But if it's going to reach 1 million people, then if you can cope with with people contacting you, then it might be worth looking at. So I guess it's all about doing some research into the magazine itself.
Absolutely. And I remember this question from the end of the last session because it got me thinking. It reminded me of a movie. I think it was from the 1990s. It was a movie about an ad agency went into a mental hospital and worked with the patients in the mental hospital to actually craft authentic messages. So I just remember one of them just from the advertisement for the movie, but it said, Volvo, they're boxy, but they're good. Which is, Volvos were very boxy shaped. They weren't the most attractive car in the world, but they were very safe. They were very well designed. So, this was what they did with these patients. The patients had no filter for whatever reason because of their pathologies. And so they would bring up a brand and they would just start talking about it, and out would come these very authentic, very frank and truthful statements that were, to a consumer are probably a little disarming. Gosh, yeah, that's exactly what I thought about that product. They're aware that I think that way, and yet they still want to engage with me. So that I don't remember the name of the movie though. I should look it up. It was intended to be a comedy movie. I don't remember seeing the movie, but I remember seeing the advertisements.
Okay, well, thank you, Bill. Now that I'm aware that within our studio the questions don't scroll up, I'll be aware of anybody asking questions in the comments. So that was last week. I kind of missed it. So please do, if you have a question that you'd like to ask us, please do post it in the comments. So Bill, let's get cracking on today's thoughts. We started in general talking about the general concept of being real within a startup environment, but we didn't get very far because we met a viewer from India, if you remember.
Yeah.
So let's go back to those questions. So, you know, can it ever backfire being too real if you're trying to launch a startup, do you think, or is it always a good idea?
Well, you know, the old saying is honesty is the best policy, but if your competition is beating you with their version of honesty, then that puts pressure on you as to what your messaging has to be. You know, will you engage in that race to the bottom? And that's never a good race to engage in, because only one person wins. Or do you try to to recreate your brand? That's usually the alternative, is rebranding yourself, change yourself. Hey, we're not a car. We're security. We're something that's going to stick with you and be loyal to you. You know, it's kind of changing your category. And about 25 years ago, when I was first talking about branding, that's what I talked about. Is for insurance agents, for instance, who I was messaging, is like, there's a million insurance agents. How do you be different from all the other ones? Because to consumers, you're the same. So how do you differentiate? And I think that's the key, is when you're tempted to engage in that race to the bottom, perhaps not telling the full truth about what you do, then it may be time to change your category, because you've got a better chance of winning in that space than being the one person who wins the race to the bottom.
Yeah, I'd add a couple of things that I think there is such a thing as oversharing. That, you know, how much do people really need to know about your personal life, or whether you went to prison for 6 months, or you know, I mean, you know, it might be an authentic picture of who you are, the whole person, but it might not be a wise thing to do. I guess another thing is, and I guess this goes back to an earlier stage that we can talk about in more detail in another podcast, is that you really do need to work out what your values are for your business, and think about what it is. You know, what is your brand is essentially your values and your own personality and your own character and
identity.
So those things have to align in order for you to come across as being authentic, because otherwise, you know, you're just going to come across as a phony because you don't know what you're talking about. So it helps if you actually believe in what it is that you're promoting as a new product or service, or a new creative project. You know.
Yeah, understanding what your customers are going to care about. Another old saying is that people don't want to know how the sausage is made, unless how you make it is important to your customer. It's part of their decision set. So if you make your sausage in a way that is environmentally sustainable, or employs homeless people or veterans or special needs people, that is a part of the story that you want to share. But other parts may not match with what your customer cares about. So and if you give them too much, then they've got too much to think about, and they don't focus in on that one thing you really wanted to drive home.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Yeah, and I guess there's a balance between authenticity and, you know, how your market operates. I mean, I do think it's a good idea to make sure that you come across as the real deal. Mm-hmm. But I mean, do you think that consumers these days value authenticity more than they did like 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
Yeah, I think they do, especially the younger generations, with access to so much information, social media, that sort of thing. There are lots of opportunities to get information about companies besides a TV commercial, which is, 30 or 40 years ago, that's really all you could know about a company is what was in their commercial. So you had to make your decision based on that. Well, today you've got a lot more information. So sharing the right information and making sure it's going out in those channels is really important.
Yeah, I mean, you just reminded me of how commercials started on television and where the word soap opera comes from. On American TV back in the 50s, I guess. You'd have these kitchen. I've frozen. Can you hear me, Bill? Yeah. I don't know why I keep freezing. Yeah, but it's essentially your commercial break would be the actors in the drama, kind of just showcasing, the products like they would do on QVC these days. So.
Yeah, they'd move over to another set and have this whatever soap they were selling this week in action, and yeah, it was amazing how how those look today to just us, and how they'll look even in the future. Though it's just how crass it looks compared to the way we can get information.
So we've come a long way when it comes to being authentic with promoting our goods and services.
It's been an evolution.
So let's talk about before launch. So how can a founder, convey their authenticity and being real before they've actually launched?
Well, it starts in your customer discovery and in idea validation. As you're connecting with those early adopter customers, those people that have the most acute version of the problem you're trying to solve. Your interactions with them will give you a great. It starts one-on-one with, hey, this is what we're trying to do. We understand your problem. We see it. This is how we see it, and this is how we're trying to solve it. And in those moments, the customer gets the opportunity to see you for exactly what you are. Hey, this thing is solving my problem, or no, this thing looks like it's solving my problem, but it's actually just trying to get my money, or it's inauthentic. It's again, it's something crass and lacks the empathy required to really draw me in as that early adopter customer.
Yeah, and I would also say that you're not starting from a standing start with a launch. Essentially there is a whole process of experimenting and being agile and running pilots and bringing alpha groups on and beta groups, to try things out and get feedback from people. And so there's a whole process of before you've launched of engaging with people to see, what they think of it.
Yeah. If you don't know if your brand is connecting to your potential customer, then you're not ready to launch.
Yeah. And also the feedback that you get back from people, you can start to use that as testimonials and kind of reviews of your product or your service.
And what are they saying to other people?
Yeah, exactly. And encouraging people to, on your behalf, say how great it is, I suppose. And I guess it as well. I mean, another thing, we often talk about landing pages to capture people's, contact details for something that's coming soon, in quote marks. If behind the scenes you've already started to, engage with future customers, then, if they like it, then get them to share the landing page with their network. So with a comment to say this is actually going to be great,
Yeah, key to crossing the chasm between the early adopter and the early majority. The difference between early adopter, early majority. The early majority wants to see the Google reviews. Even if it looks like it solves their problem, they're going to wait until they see 100 5-star reviews before they're going to touch your product. So you have to employ that set of early adopters to do it for you.
Yeah, do you remember back in the day when Gmail was first a thing?
Mm-hmm.
There was a huge kind of buzz around it, and Google only, you had to get a special invitation to join Gmail.
Yeah.
And there was a certain scarcity around to actually do that.
Pinterest did the same thing.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, there's an online bank opening up near me, and they started about 3 months ago sending me stuff in the mail, and they've done this little drip campaign, and they're saying the first 2,500 people to sign up are founders, and we'll get a higher interest savings account.
Right.
And I've been following it very closely because that's something I'm interested in, getting my kids involved in and making sure that they're, investing their money as their short-term money as well as they can. So, these are great things to do is to really those kind of drip campaigns, that scarcity that you mentioned, that drives hindbrain stuff that we don't even realize that we're employing. I gotta go get me some of that before it's all gone. It just adds another level, and at least gives you a chance to interact with them. That's not going to be your value proposition forever, but if it can attract those first 10, 20, 50, 100 customers who will help you build that bridge you have to get to the early majority, and then so be it. It's a great tactic.
Yeah.
As long as it's authentic. As long as it's authentically.
I was gonna say it's
like diamonds. Diamonds are not rare, but De Beers makes us think they are.
It's kind of racking up the pressure, isn't it? Because you've got to be good if you're saying it's scarce. Because
you better. Yep.
So I guess it's you need some positive validation from your testing before you say that. But do you think that could work for a brand new startup that nobody's previously heard of, Bill?
Absolutely, as long as you can get in touch with those early adopter customers. They're ready to rip the solution out of your hand, and seeing what sort of hurdles they're willing to jump to get it is an important part of your experimentation process. If they'll only take it from you for free, then you haven't proven anything. I already know the answer to that experiment. People love free stuff. It doesn't matter. But if they're willing to jump in early, hey, 24 hours. And if they do that, then it means they want to solve that problem and they don't want to miss out. So you've got a customer with a serious problem that they see your solution potentially solving, and they're willing to jump through a hoop to get it. Okay. Great behavioral signal.
Well, yeah, ticking clocks and scarcity and things are always good. Yeah, I mean, it's if you think about script doctoring, for Hollywood features and things, think about the elements of a feature film that you enjoy, and that you could probably build that into your startup as a way of creating some interest and tension and stuff. So
I have heard of films and stories actually being written kind of that way, getting customer feedback as they go.
Yeah.
It's not a lot, but Chris, you may have been telling me about it. I don't know. I know you're connected.
Well, if you think about it, for decades it's been possible for sort of early audiences to go
pre-screening.
To these pre-screening things where and if they really hate it, the studio will go back and change the ending or
pull the plug on it completely before they send good money after bad trying to promote a movie that's just gonna die in the vine.
But I guess these days, I mean, the granularity of how you can involve people all the way through. I'm a bit ambivalent, really. I think sometimes that would work well if you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a movie, because obviously it's a huge investment.
Yeah.
But there is something also to be said, rather than writing a script by committee, and getting the lowest common denominator of what everybody agrees is a decent story. There's also something to be said, I think, to put trust in somebody who is a storyteller, as a screenwriter and a producer director, to actually get lost in their world. And as long as it resonates with an audience, I think maybe just having one person telling the story is also a good idea.
Absolutely.
And I guess that goes for products and services too. You don't really want a product that on the one hand it has to connect with the customers, but on the other hand it's got to come across as being innovative and groundbreaking, and
it needs to surprise your customer. The customer needs to see your product and say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that." That's when you really know you've disrupted something.
And actually, as a kind of segue into what we're going to be talking about very soon, I guess probably next week. Actually, there's ChatGPT had that kind of impact. The AI went sort of mass market very quickly, maybe 18 months, 2 years ago.
Yeah, and they had 1 million customers for ChatGPT within months.
Yeah. So somehow they got the secret sauce of being authentic, of genuinely answering an unmet need.
Mhm.
But the amazing thing was that people didn't realize somehow that that was a need in the first place.
I didn't know I needed ChatGPT. Now
Yeah,
I can't live without.
But once it was available, it was like, oh my goodness, you know.
Same with the cell phone. Same with the television. Same with the automobile. Same with the tractor. Same, you know.
Or even things like, do you remember the iPod?
The iPod. Yeah,
You know?
I've got 1,000 songs in my pocket.
Yes, I mean that's an example of a product that was amazingly popular for a time, and then suddenly other things took over. So
yeah, and you can't focus group that, but you can at least test out your prototypes and find out, you know, can people use it? Is the interface, you know, is the interface working? Is it, you know, yeah.
So although it's impossible to predict when you can capture lightning in a bottle, it's good to try and create an environment where that might be possible, I suppose.
Yes. Yeah. And I tell the teams that I work with is always set yourself up to be surprised when you're working with customers. Don't ask questions you know the answer to already. Ask big open-ended questions that allow them to tell stories that bring up things that you would never have thought of, but might be deeply personal to your customer.
Yeah.
Always be surprised.
So so if you've not got much in the way of finance or resources, you know, or even time, I guess, you know, what would you concentrate on in terms of, you know, creating an authentic brand right at the beginning? Well,
you know, I always advise the people I'm working with to use whatever the customer is telling you. You know, when you're working with your initial customers, listen to those quotes, you know, and use those as your messaging, because those came organically from your customer. They're not a marketing professional. They weren't trying to shill for you. They were just reacting to your value proposition. So don't try to make up something clever necessarily. Listen for really great sound bites from your initial customers, or the people that you're just talking to, because they will probably help write your initial copy. Now later on you may get something more professional, but I think that's a great place to start.
And I think if you've not got much in the way of time or money, there are lots of social media tools that are actually free.
Yeah.
Especially at the beginning. I mean, obviously, if you're on LinkedIn, then you can go for the pro version and you can make more connections that way. But you can start off for free.
Mm-hmm.
But what's key is working out who you're, and this is a process of experimenting and also building customer profiles. You need to know, you know, what's the demographic of your market, and essentially where do they hang out.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's pointless being on Facebook if it's Gen Z, for example, you know, because they don't hang out there. You know, they're probably on TikTok or other things, you know, but whatever's even newer than that.
Yeah, so, if you don't know where your customer hangs out, then you're not ready to launch.
Okay. We've had a question from Simon, which I'm going to show on screen. He says, is there a resource to go to about asking questions to customers or doing customer interviews?
Is there anything you use, Chris, or off the top of your head? I mean, there's a lot of great. There's lots of. There's videos on YouTube to talk about doing customer interviews, and you know, most of them are very good.
Yeah, I think in general, you know, well, it's in terms of once you know who your customers are. If you want to generate some great questions for those people, then, you know, simply asking a tool like ChatGPT is quite a good way of generating the right kind of questions for that audience.
Yeah, tell it what you want to learn, and then give me a list of open-ended questions that encourage the subject to tell stories, so that I can learn these things. And yeah, I think a simple prompt like that will probably get you a very nice place to start. And then it's up to you as the interviewer to just have basic people skills and have a conversation with someone and ask a follow-up question that makes sense based on what they told you.
Well, and the other thing, I guess, is, you know, if you're a pre-launch founder, you're going to have family and friends.
Yeah.
and you know, I guess if you prime them for being devil's advocate
Mhm.
and like really, you know, stress testing your ideas and coming back and being critical, maybe, or you know, positively critical.
Tell me
But
everything that's wrong with this idea.
yeah, yeah. I mean, because it's pointless. It's pointless being like a yes person who agrees with everything,
No,
because you're not going to get the right kind of response.
I
I
don't need
mean,
yes.
there's been a follow up where Simon was saying, you know, what about the mum test? Well, I guess mum is always going to say that your mum is always going to say, you know, that something's amazing. So that's not necessarily as
You're the best.
valuable as it could. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, people often say actually that you can't tell about the success of a product or a service, I guess, until you've had 1,000 customers. Because the issue is that, you know, your own networks can be quite extensive.
Yeah.
You know, so your family and friends, you know, might actually turn out to be a couple of hundred people. So you wouldn't know for sure whether something's going to, you know, have the potential to be really successful until you've sold about 1,000 units or whatever it is.
And maybe that maybe take that one step further. Maybe 1,000 repeat customers.
Yes.
Because you know
Yes.
you can trick anybody into buying your product once, but you can't trick them twice.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Fool me
true.
twice, shame on you, right? Or shame on
Yeah.
me. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me once, shame on you.
Yeah. So, just trying to think of, is there anything that we've talked about, Bill, that you'd like to like focus on? I've got to disappear, so maybe if you can answer that question, then I'm going to go off screen because somebody's just arrived with a delivery. So
Understood.
I'll be back in a second. Yeah.
Gotta love work from home. You know, authenticity has to be inherently authentic. So, and that sounds a bit meta, but um, starting from the start, you know, what it is that we're trying to do. Why are we doing it? Um, if it's not authentic, if it's not authentically trying to help somebody, you can pretend to be authentic for a while, but you're going to come off as a phony at some point. So make that part of your strategy early on is authenticity. How do we weave that into everything that we do as we're trying to build this new business or discover our business model, from suppliers to customers to the value proposition to how we evolve, the whole 9 yards. You know, how do we weave that authenticity into really everything we do so it becomes a part of how we do business? Then we will be truly seen as authentic.
Yeah. So maybe to wrap this up, because I imagine we're going to be moving on to other topics. Is there a kind of overall, you know, feeling about the whole process of producing a product from start to finish? Like everything has to be authentic all the way through. So I guess you're only as good as your weakest link, I suppose, in the chain.
Well, I think that's a great point. So maybe identifying what the, you know, as you look at your value proposition, as you look at your business model as it's evolving, what is that place where we could either become inauthentic, where we might take some shortcuts, or we could at least appear to be authentic because we're not sharing out the right things or enough or whatever it is. And so as you're developing your longer term market strategy, it's all those pieces. How does authenticity weave into those intentionally in a way that gives our customers what they need to know to feel comfortable with our product, and you know, and especially with recommending it to others. So I think, yeah, you know, what is that pinch point? You know, off the top of my head, you know, it could be anything, depending on the product and you and your situation. But being able to identify that, you know, having that co-founder or those other people involved that can look in and be a little less biased than you, say, hey, right here, that's, you know, with the suppliers, you know, you're getting supplied by, you know, conflict products or something like that, and you don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Oh shoot, there's a place where we're vulnerable, and we're going to need to spend some time, take a step back, understand that point, and fix it so that it doesn't destroy the rest of what we've tried to create.
Yeah, and I think just as a last point, to kind of wrap this up, and again, this is something we can talk about in more detail another time. You're only as good once you've launched. You're only as good as your customer service.
Yeah.
So people have to have a good experience of dealing with you. And so you need to have really good communications and to react quickly and appropriately to the feedback that you get from people. And, you know, listen to your customers, like we've been saying before. And that's a way of staying authentic, you know, into the future once you've launched.
Absolutely. You know, between purchase and satisfaction, there's actually a step in the customer journey where you open the box and everything that you expected is all on trial in that moment. You open the box, and when I open the box, is everything there the way I expect it to be, or am I surprised either positively or negatively? And then that helps you either get past satisfied to passionate, which means I'm going to go out and tell everybody, or you go right back to I don't even know who you are anymore. So
Okay.
It's often overlooked. Open up the box, you know, is an important step.
Yeah,
You
well,
just had a box at your front door, so it'd be interesting to see what
well,
happens.
no, it's exactly. Yeah, I bought an alarm clock, and that's actually quite a segue into saying that this week's been a bit weird time-wise, simply because the UK clocks went back last Sunday.
Oh, okay, ours go back this Saturday night.
Exactly, and you know, this coming weekend is where the clocks go back in the US.
Yes.
So for this 1 week, there's been a time difference of 1 hour.
Okay, an extra
the
hour.
UK and sorry, a time difference of 4 hours
Instead of
as
5.
opposed to 5 hours with
Yeah.
respect to the East Coast time. So it'll all get synchronized again next week. So yeah, hello Simon for the last.
No, I just realised that we have to end the stream now.
No. I was going to, but I was going to. Before I do that, I've got to tell people to like the video, to click the you know the notifications bell, and to make sure you make it black so that it kind of notifies you every time we come up with a new video, and do share it around your networks. So thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you.
Bye to Simon, and see you all next week. Thank you for coming, and also to the future people. Hope you enjoy the video if you're actually watching it as a recording. So see you next Wednesday.